Dan Mandis here, and a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Robby Starbuck is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Robby, how are you? Been a minute?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So I noted on your Twitter feed the following. Americans for Prosperity. They are looking to Americans for Prosperity and school choice groups assemble army to push for voucher expansion. Now, I love that. As of course, Robby, you and I are both conservatives, and I'm all for expanding anything that gives parents more choice as far as their education goes. I just had Michael Patrick Leahy in here talking about this move within the state legislature, perhaps Governor Lee as well, to cut federal funding and those strings. So this is kind of sort of on the same lines as you are an ambassador now for Americans for Prosperity. Talk about what you folks are trying to do to fight for school choice.
You know, Americans for Prosperity has knocked on over 180,000 doors here, and it's not going to stop. I mean, the energy is totally on our side because when you want to put money back in the hands of parents, their tax dollars, you know, there's nothing better than that. And that's what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we trust parents to make the right choice here for their child. The state does not always know best. And the reality is in many of these cases in extremely blue cities, the schools that parents are locked into for their kids have been totally lost to the poison of wokeness. Yep. And so parents need to be able to have alternatives, putting this money back in their pocket to say, we trust you, pick what's best for your kids. And maybe that is a public school, maybe it's not, but that should be the parent's choice. It's their tax dollar, you know, and this is their child. The money's earmarked for that child's education. We shouldn't leave that on the table. We've got to open it up for parents.
You know, Robby, it's interesting because you and I, we both understand this. Why is it that Democrats, and by the way, the answer, folks, is the teachers union, but I'll go ahead and pose the question to Robby. So why is it that folks on the left don't understand that when they harp and they continuously complain about, you know, generational poverty and these kinds of things in some of these communities, well, the answer is that you need to allow these parents to give their kids the opportunity to go to a better school and not locked into, you know, Shelby County schools in Memphis or, you know, here in Nashville for Davidson County schools and so forth. If you really care about these communities, you allow these parents to send their kids to a better school, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think it comes down to a misunderstanding or an intentional, willful, you know, sort of betrayal of the reality of the situation, which is that, you know, kids deserve the best. And in America, if you truly believe in our future and the next generation, you need to believe in equal opportunity, not equal outcome. The left believes in this concept of equity, which essentially says you should cut off my knees to make somebody else taller so that we're equal in height. And that is not America. That's not an American ideal. That's a communist ideal. In America, we should just be striving to make sure that there's this equal starting point in terms of the tools people have to be able to learn and things like that. That's what school choice unlocks. And so, you know, if you're a parent in Tennessee, you need to get in touch with a group like Americans for Prosperity and get involved because we're talking about tens of thousands of your tax dollars that could be returned to you if this passes. So that's, you know, upwards of $9,000 per student per year. Okay, this isn't a one-time deal. This is every year your tax dollars go back to you to make the choice what is best for your child. So you're not locked into any one school for your child's entire life. You know, I think that every parent, student, teacher, regardless of income or zip code, they're going to benefit from this because when you put parents in control, good things happen. When you put government in control, bad things happen. And I think anybody can see that. I always ask the question, name me one thing the government does well except for take our money and overspend it on things that we all think are ridiculous. And people can't give me a good answer. I think if you've ever been to driver services or you've been to like the Social Security office, you know this to be true. The government is not good at anything when you give them power. And so I think that this is another one of those situations where we can only improve by adding competition to the game here.
Not Johnny. Robby, you've stumped me. I'm sitting here. You mentioned name one thing that the government does well. I'm in here scratching my head. I don't, Johnny, Ken, can you guys name one thing the government does well? I think Robbie's on to something.
Screw things up.
Screw things up. That's exactly right, Johnny. Listen, that's why they're trying to hire those 87,000 IRS agents, right? Robby Starbuck, because that's really the only thing that they need to do well so that they can abscond with more of our money. So I guess bottom line is, what do you think the possibility is that this is actually going to happen? Because you're talking about, what, $8,000, $9,000? And what can people do to either become more active in this situation with Americans for Prosperity? How can people help you folks help us?
Yeah, get involved with Americans for Prosperity. You can go to @AFPTN on any social media. Get involved, reach out, send a message or an email to AFP. AFP is going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting to make this a reality for parents here in Tennessee. They're going to have billboards, mail, digital, radio ads, everything you can think of, because they know how important this is for parents. And you can get involved too. Help door knock, help make phone calls, whatever it is. I mean, there's real money on the line for you and your family. I mean, if you've got 3 kids, you're talking about almost $9,000 each. Yep. That's big money to any family in Tennessee. I mean, I know for all of my friends, that's big money that would be life-changing in many ways for their children to ensure their child has the best education possible. So, I don't see any way that the parents of Tennessee don't get involved here and don't make this a reality. Because you know what? There's a lot of issues out there that are partisan in nature where, you're going to have to fight for just your side to get on board. But the truth is, I've gone door knocking, in the past few years, and I've gone on those phone bank, trips with friends where we sit down and we make the phone calls. And you talk to Democrats about this issue, they're on board with it, okay? You talk to independents on this issue, they're on board with it. Republicans are overwhelmingly, I don't know a Republican who's not on board for school choice. So you get such broad support across so many different places that tells me only one thing. There's only one opposition on this issue, aside from the actual Democratic Party and their leadership apparatus, and that seems to be the far left unions. Yep. The far left unions are looking out for themselves, not the teachers, because I know many teachers who are also in favor of this. I mean, think about it this way. If a teacher right now gets school choice enacted and they get 10 students in a micro school, that's, almost $90,000 a year. Okay. Yep. That's more than the teacher's making in public school right now for a smaller classroom size, focused on the students, so the kids get more attention. And I don't see how that's a losing situation for any teacher. You've just unlocked the competitiveness of the market to pay you more for your services. So the unions are doing a disservice to their teachers.
Well, the unions are doing a disservice to their teachers. The unions are doing a disservice to their communities. The unions are doing a disservice to the students. Robby, a couple of different stories now, this really back in the headlines, where we are finding out even more about how, for example, this is the headline from National Review, State Department and the DHS outsourced social media censorship to, of all places, Stanford. And so that was part of a House GOP probe. And Senator Marsha Blackburn has been in on all of these conversations, Jim Jordan as well. You were one of those that was famously censored. You must feel a sense of vindication at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had sort of the weird distinction of not only being on this short list of, conservatives that were censored intentionally by the government, but a couple other, strange things. I was the only one who was actively running a congressional campaign at the time. So it was also election interference, what they did. The U.S. government got involved in censoring the voice of somebody running for office. And then on the flip side of that, I also helped break the story of this happening over a year ago and laid it all out. And it was a thread that went viral. It opened up a lot of eyes, and it got a lot of folks in government very interested in exactly how far this went. So, and I've been in contact recently with the Weaponization Committee. I think there's still a lot more to come out on this whole thing. And I'm a very ideological person, if you haven't noticed.
Yes,
and
I've noticed.
So some people have wondered, why haven't you taken action on this? It's really been being very methodical about how we do this to set a precedent and making sure we have all the available evidence ready to go. But believe me, this is a promise. There will be action against the federal government for what they did. and we're going to hold them accountable, and I have no interest in a settlement of any kind. I would rather have $0 paid to me and set a precedent to ensure that there are serious consequences for what was done, that it can't happen again. That's what's important to me, because this is un-American in every respect. This is what you see in communist countries. They used the power of the government to shut down people's voices, and it was effective in many ways. You know, if you think about the effect it had on large scale, or I should say smaller scale elections even, mayor races and county commissions and things like that, when they were intentionally trying to censor myself, people like Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump Jr., that has an effect on all those local elections, because oftentimes we talk about those. And you're talking about, in some races, a shift of a few hundred votes is a deciding factor in who wins. So this was election interference on many scales by trying to shut down these voices. And the government has no place in that conversation at all. In fact, I would argue they have no place in many places they are right now. But this is one that's so indisputable when it comes to our constitutional rights that, I want to make the point, and I think we're going to do that with what we do going forward. So we'll definitely keep you guys apprised of how we handle this. But I think you're going to see some large-scale action from multiple of us who were affected by what the government did.
I got to tell you that when you look at censorship, I know you were impacted, and Charlie Kirk and all of the other very conservative voices that are out there. I look at the epitome of this example would be the laptop from hell. I mean, that when you talk about election interference and people talk about stolen elections, that to me is how the election was stolen, because they tried to discredit a story they knew was credible. That's number one. And number two, that they also did everything they could to suppress the people that were trying to tell the truth. And it did. I mean, it interfered with the election. It stole the election, in my opinion, for Joe Biden. Let me ask you this, Robby. Are you done with politics, running for politics? Are you planning on doing anything in the future? This is, of course, the question that you can't answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, you never say never, but not right this second or anything. I think there's a lot of good work we can do in Tennessee without me running for office right now. It's definitely something, I mean, obviously, service is in my heart. I want to do good things for the people. God's blessed me in so many ways, and I think that politics is broken in America. We've got a lot of the wrong people in the wrong places for the wrong reasons, and eventually we need to have some people in these spots that are really able to make significant change happen. But for the time being, there's a lot we can do on the outside, and I think we're doing that. I think we're going to see in the next legislative session and in some other places here nationally that we can make a big difference no matter where we are. And, I know Tennesseans are going to have our back as we do that and fight these battles and win some good things for our kids and future generations.
Robby Starbuck, thank you very much for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7